There's a photograph. It's from the summer of 2001, taken on a family vacation in Lake City, Colorado. A 6-year-old girl stands between her parents, all three of them smiling at the camera. The girl has strawberry blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She's wearing her favorite clothes. Her mother's arm is wrapped around her protectively. Her father stands close. They look like any American family on vacation in the Rocky Mountains. Happy, together, safe. 4 months later, that little girl would disappear. Her mother would be found dead in a landfill, wrapped in a tent and surrounded by garbage, shot in the face while she slept. But the girl, Abigail Jo Blagg, 6 years old, 44 pounds, 4 feet tall, has never been found. Not in the landfill where they searched for 7 weeks. Not in the 45 miles of rugged desert and canyon land where 200 volunteers spent 11 days looking. Not in the 23 years since she vanished from her home on a cold November morning. Someone called her school that day and said she wouldn't be coming in. Someone made sure nobody would be looking for her. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. And the only person who claims to know what happened that morning is the same man who, according to prosecutors, staged an elaborate burglary, disposed of his wife's body at his workplace, and then called 911 pretending to be confused and terrified. The man who visited escort services multiple times a month, who had more than 1,800 pornographic images on his computer, whose wife had sought help from domestic violence services just days before she died, the man who has been convicted twice of murdering his wife. But he has never been charged with what happened to Abby, because without a body, without evidence, without proof, even the most obvious suspect cannot be prosecuted. This is the story of a child who vanished during a murder, a case where the answer seems clear to everyone except the law, where justice was served for one victim but not the other, where a little girl who woke up singing every morning simply ceased to exist one November day, leaving nothing behind except questions that have haunted a community for more than 2 decades. Abigail Jo Blagg, Abby to everyone who knew her, was born on March 21, 1995, in San Diego, California. She arrived into what appeared to be a blessed beginning. Her parents were Jennifer Lohman Blagg and Michael Francis Blagg, and their story seemed like something from a romance novel. Jennifer had grown up with clear ideas about what she wanted in life. Her faith defined her. She was a sweet woman, friends would say, devoted to her Christian beliefs, loyal to her family. She spoke to her mother Marilyn Conway nearly every day, the kind of daughter-mother relationship that created a bond deeper than blood. Jennifer wanted a good Christian man, a provider, a father, someone who shared her values. She met Michael Blagg at a party while she was studying business at National University in San Diego. He was 25 years old, a helicopter pilot in the United States Navy. He had served in the Persian Gulf War. Decorated, disciplined. He presented himself as exactly what Jennifer was looking for, a man of faith, a man of honor. They married in 1993. Jennifer's mother Marilyn liked Michael from the beginning. He was personable, she said, charming. The couple seemed happy. Michael's mother Betsy thought they were a fairy tale couple. In every letter Jennifer wrote to her mother-in-law, she expressed how much she loved Michael, and Michael, by all appearances, was absolutely in love with her. When Abby was born in 1995, 3 years after their wedding, the picture seemed complete. Here was the family Jennifer had dreamed of. A devoted husband, a beautiful daughter, a life centered around faith and community. Those who knew Abby remember her as a child who radiated joy. She was, Michael would later say, a miniature version of Jennifer, full of life, bright, happy. She would wake up singing in the morning and go to bed singing at night. She had that kind of personality that makes people smile just remembering her. After Michael left the Navy, the family eventually settled in Simpsonville, South Carolina. They became active members of their local evangelical church, attending services every Sunday. Both Jennifer and Michael taught Bible study classes. They led prayer meetings. To the members of their congregation, they were a poster family, the kind of people you'd expect to see in a studio photograph on display. Perfect. Jennifer seemed to thrive in Simpsonville. She had close friends, including Edith Melson and Teresa Weidenman, women who became confidants. She volunteered regularly in Abby's first-grade class at Bookcliff Christian School. She took jazzercise classes. She walked at the mall for exercise. She started her Christmas shopping in early November every year, always organized, always planning ahead. Abby attended the same Christian school where Jennifer worked as a teacher's aide. The little girl had perfect attendance. She loved learning. She loved being around other children. In many ways, she was living the childhood Jennifer had dreamed of providing. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Something Jennifer's friends noticed, but perhaps didn't fully understand at the time. Michael was protective of Jennifer. That's how people described it initially. He called her multiple times a day to check in. He wanted to know where she was, what she was doing. At first, this seemed like the behavior of a devoted husband. But some of Jennifer's friends started to see it differently. Edith Melson remembered a specific incident. She and another friend were visiting Jennifer at the Blagg home one afternoon. They were talking, laughing, enjoying themselves. Then Jennifer glanced at the clock and saw it was past 4 o'clock. Michael would be home from work soon. The panic on Jennifer's face was immediate and unmistakable. She wasn't just hurrying to get dinner ready or tidy up the house. She was frantically trying to get her friends out the door. She was anxious, Melson said. All she could think about was making sure everything was set so Michael could come home to a good environment. That kind of reaction stays with you. It's the kind of thing that makes you wonder. Grand Junction, Colorado, in 2001, was a city of about 45,000 people nestled in the high desert of western Colorado, where the red rock formations of the Grand Mesa meet the Colorado River Valley. It sits at an elevation of nearly 4,600 feet, surrounded by plateaus, canyons, and the kind of rugged landscape that defines the American West. For a city of its size, Grand Junction was relatively quiet. The crime rate was moderate. People knew their neighbors. Families felt safe. The town had a strong evangelical Christian community, which was part of what drew the Blaggs there when Michael accepted a new job opportunity in 2001. Michael had been offered a position as operations manager at Amatech Dixon, a manufacturing company in Grand Junction. It was a good job. More responsibility, better pay. The kind of career advancement that made sense on paper. But Jennifer didn't want to move. She told her friend Edith Melson the news through tears. She loved Simpsonville. She had built a life there. She had friends, a community, a support system. But she believed in being a dutiful wife. She believed in supporting her husband's career. So, despite her reservations, despite her tears, she agreed to relocate. The Blaggs moved into a comfortable 2-story home on Pine Terrace Court in the Redlands area, a quiet subdivision just outside Grand Junction proper. It was a cul-de-sac neighborhood, well-maintained homes, landscaped yards, the kind of place where children rode bicycles and parents waved to each other from driveways. Behind the house ran Greenbelt Drive, a busy thoroughfare that cut through the area. Beyond that, the Colorado River and vast stretches of high desert terrain. It was beautiful country, stark, isolated in its own way. Jennifer tried to make the best of the move. She enrolled Abby in Bookcliff Christian School and resumed working there as a teacher's aide, volunteering in classrooms multiple times a week. The family found a small evangelical church and became involved. Michael settled into his new role at Amatech Dixon. From the outside, they appeared to be adapting well. But Jennifer's friends back in South Carolina noticed something. When they talked to her on the phone, she seemed unhappy, subdued. She was trying, they could tell, but she wasn't thriving the way she had in Simpsonville. And then there was her relationship with Michael. Whatever tensions had existed before the move seemed to intensify. Jennifer made a note in her Bible in June 2000, just a few months after arriving in Colorado. The entry was dated June 17th. She wrote about having a serious talk with Michael about their lack of effective communication. She said she felt scared, numb, frustrated, almost desperate. She cried out to God, asking how to pray for Mike, for herself, for their marriage. That wasn't the prayer of a woman in a fairy tale relationship. That was the prayer of someone struggling, someone afraid. In the weeks leading up to November 13, 2001, Jennifer Blagg seemed to be reaching a breaking point. The cracks in the seemingly perfect facade were beginning to show, and the people closest to her were starting to see them clearly. A few days before she disappeared, Jennifer made a phone call to her best friend Edith Melson back in South Carolina. The two women talked about a potential visit. Jennifer said she and Abby were planning to come see her. But there was something in Jennifer's voice that Melson noticed immediately. Jennifer sounded upset, troubled. Before ending the call, she asked Melson to pray for her. That was the last time Edith Melson would hear from her friend. Jennifer was also writing in her Bible during this time, documenting her inner turmoil. In one entry, she wrote something she titled, "The Key to Peace." The note read, Jesus has the keys to life and death. But he's left me some keys also: health, marriage, material, and my will as to what I do with these keys. The key to Jesus' peace is to give him the key to my will. Trust him with the keys he's left me. Give them back and trust him with them. I'll have peace, because he says I will. It's the kind of note someone writes when they're trying desperately to find strength, when they're surrendering control because they don't know what else to do. Prosecutors would later argue that this note was written during a tumultuous 3 or 4 day period in early November 2001, a period when the marriage was fracturing, when Jennifer was making decisions about her future. Because in those final days before she vanished, Jennifer Blagg did something remarkable. She walked into Colorado Legal Services in Grand Junction. She brought Abby with her. Luella Cross, a legal secretary who worked there, would never forget the woman who came into the office that day in October or early November. Jennifer wore a look of fear and determination. She said she needed to speak to a divorce attorney. She said she couldn't handle it anymore. When Cross asked if domestic violence was involved, Jennifer answered, yes. She said she couldn't take any more of the abuse. Abby was there too, sitting quietly beside her mother. Cross remembered the little girl clearly, wearing bib overalls and a blouse with puffy sleeves, just 6 years old, witnessing her mother's attempt to escape. Jennifer filled out an application to be represented by the office, but when she was told she couldn't see an attorney immediately, she became upset. She took the application with her and left. Whether she ever intended to come back is unknown. Whether she had a plan is unknown. What we know is that she walked out of that office with her daughter, still trapped in a situation she had described as abusive, with no immediate path to freedom. Michael Blagg would later claim through his defense attorneys that this account was questionable. They argued that Jennifer couldn't have visited the office when Cross said she did because of the family's schedule and because Abby had perfect attendance at school. They suggested Cross was mistaken or unreliable. But Cross was certain. She remembered the woman. She remembered the little girl. She remembered the fear. At home, the marriage was deteriorating in other ways too. Jennifer had discovered pornography on Michael's computer, more than 1,800 images, according to investigators. When confronted, Michael admitted to it. He claimed he and Jennifer were having sexual problems, and that he was conducting research online. It was an explanation that satisfied no one, except perhaps himself. Investigators would also learn that Michael was visiting a local escort service multiple times a month, receiving massages from topless women. This was not the behavior of the devout Christian family man he portrayed himself to be. This was someone living a double life. The night of November 12, 2001, was unremarkable in most ways. Michael, Jennifer, and Abby were last seen at their home sometime between 3 and 3:30 in the afternoon. Neighbors would later report that they saw nothing unusual that evening. The family's red and gold 2000 Ford Windstar minivan was parked in the garage, as it normally was. The blinds were closed, as they always were. The Blaggs kept to themselves, neighbors said. They weren't unfriendly, but they weren't particularly social either. That night, Jennifer and Abby presumably went to bed at their normal time. Michael would later claim that when he went to sleep, everything was fine. His wife and daughter were safe in their beds. It was just another night. November 13th, 2001, started like any other workday for Michael Blagg. Or so he claimed. According to his account, he woke up around 6 in the morning. He slid out of bed quietly so as not to disturb Jennifer, who was still sleeping. Abby was asleep in her room. His normal routine, he said, was to get ready and leave for work early, arriving at Amatech-Dixon by around 6:30 or 7. Michael left the house that morning and drove to his workplace. Shortly after 7 a.m., he called home. The phone rang through to the answering machine. His voice on the recording was cheerful. "Good morning, gorgeous. It's me just calling to see how you and Abby are doing." No answer wasn't unusual. Michael would later explain. Jennifer often didn't pick up if she was busy getting Abby ready for school or if they had already left. But someone did call Abby's school that morning. Someone contacted the administration at Bookcliff Christian School and told them that Abby Blagg would be absent from class on November 13th. Who made that call has never been definitively established. Michael denies making it. Jennifer couldn't have made it if prosecutors' timeline is correct. So who ensured that no one would miss Abby that day? Michael called home again later in the morning. Still no answer. He left another message. "Hey, where are you? Just calling to see how you're doing." His messages were becoming more frequent. Around 3 in the afternoon. "Man, Where are you guys? Hey, I hope everything's going okay. I love ya. I miss you. At approximately 4 p.m., Michael left work and drove home. The drive took about 20 minutes. He arrived at the house on Pine Terrace Court around 4:20 p.m. What happened next depends entirely on whose version of events you believe. According to Michael, he pulled into the driveway and noticed immediately that something felt wrong. When he entered through the garage, he saw that the back door, the one leading from the house to the backyard, was standing ajar. Not wide open, just open enough to be noticeable. He walked through the house calling for Jennifer and Abby. No response. As he moved toward the master bedroom, his sense of dread intensified. When he entered the bedroom, he saw chaos. An empty jewelry box lay on the floor. And on Jennifer's side of the bed, spreading across the white sheets and dripping down onto the pristine white carpet, was blood. A massive amount of blood. Michael would later describe the scene in a call to the Mesa County Sheriff's Office. His voice was frantic, breaking, "I can see there was a large dark spot on the bed. I think that maybe she's rolled off the bed and is on the ground on the other side, and so I go to the other side of the bed, and there's more blood." At 4:21 p.m., Michael Blagg called 911. The recording captures a man who sounds panicked, hyperventilating, struggling to get words out. He told the dispatcher he had come home to find his wife and daughter missing, and blood in the bedroom. He said the back door was open. He said he didn't know what had happened, but he knew it was bad. The dispatcher told him to get out of the house in case whoever had done this was still inside. Michael complied, leaving and waiting for law enforcement to arrive. Deputies from the Mesa County Sheriff's Office arrived within minutes. When they entered the home, they found exactly what Michael had described: the empty jewelry box on the floor, the back door open, and in the master bedroom, a scene of violence. Blood saturated Jennifer's side of the mattress, so much blood that it had soaked through to the mattress pad beneath. Blood had dripped onto the carpet. But there were things about the scene that struck investigators as odd almost immediately. There was no sign of struggle, no blood anywhere else in the room, no defensive wounds pattern, no indication that Jennifer had fought an attacker. The blood was concentrated entirely on her side of the bed, near the pillow. The empty jewelry box on the floor was meant to suggest a burglary, but nothing of significant value appeared to be missing. There were other items in the house that any burglar would have taken: electronics, cash, other valuables. Why take only jewelry and leave everything else? And the back door being open struck investigators as staged. It was too convenient, too obvious. Investigator Steve King would later testify that when he examined the crime scene, something didn't look right. It looked like it had been staged, he said. The kind of scene someone creates to suggest an intruder broke in, committed a crime, and fled. But Michael Blagg was playing the role of devastated husband and father perfectly. He was cooperative with police, distraught, confused. He begged anyone with information to come forward. He said he believed the Lord would bring his family home. In the first hours and days after Jennifer and Abby were reported missing, the Mesa County Sheriff's Office launched an immediate investigation. They searched the Colorado River and its banks, thinking perhaps the bodies had been disposed of in the water. They interviewed neighbors. They processed the crime scene meticulously. DNA tests on the blood confirmed what everyone already suspected: it belonged to Jennifer Blagg. The amount of blood suggested that someone had been grievously injured or killed in that bed. It was not survivable blood loss. But there were no bodies, no Jennifer, no Abby. Just blood and unanswered questions. For the people of Grand Junction, the disappearance of Jennifer and Abby Blagg became an obsession. This was a small community where things like this didn't happen. A mother and child vanishing from their home was the stuff of nightmares. Volunteers organized search parties. Flyers with photos of Jennifer and Abby went up throughout the town. The local church community rallied, holding prayer vigils and organizing support. Michael Blagg appeared before cameras and reporters pleading for his family's return. He looked haggard, destroyed. He spoke about how much he loved Jennifer and Abby. He said he had everything: a great job, a wonderful family, an incredible wife and daughter. Everything had been perfect, and now it was gone. Some people in the community believed him. They saw a man shattered by tragedy. Others, particularly as more details emerged, began to have doubts. In December 2001, barely a month after Jennifer and Abby disappeared, Michael was caught on surveillance camera at his workplace stealing office equipment: a paper shredder and a table. It was bizarre behavior for someone supposedly consumed by grief over his missing family. He was confronted about the theft, and shortly after, in February 2002, Michael attempted suicide. He survived. In the suicide note he left behind, Michael denied any involvement in his wife and daughter's disappearance, but investigators were uncovering information that painted a very different picture of the Blagg marriage than the one Michael had presented publicly. The pornography on his computer, the visits to escort services, Jennifer's visit to domestic violence services, the troubled journal entries in her Bible, friends who described Michael as controlling and overbearing, a pattern of behavior that suggested this was not a happy marriage at all. In March 2002, authorities officially announced that they believed Jennifer and Abby were victims of foul play. They stated that the family's minivan had likely been used to transport bodies from the home. They asked the public for any information about sightings of the vehicle on November 13th. An anonymous female caller contacted the sheriff's office multiple times, claiming she had seen the Blagg family's red minivan near Park Ridge, Colorado on the day of the disappearance. Park Ridge was a remote area, the kind of place where someone might dispose of remains without being observed. Police issued a public plea for the woman to call back with more details, but it's unclear if she ever did. In April 2002, a massive volunteer search effort was organized. For 11 days, more than 200 volunteers from 9 states and 49 Colorado towns combed through a 45-mile radius around the Blagg home. The search area was calculated based on the unaccounted mileage on the family's minivan. Between November 9th, when the van was last fueled, and November 13th, when Jennifer and Abby were reported missing, there were approximately 90 miles that couldn't be explained. Volunteers searched on foot, on horseback, and from the air. They scoured the rugged high desert landscape, the Colorado River, the Red Rock formations, the crags and canyons that defined the region. They looked in places where someone might hide a body, or 2 bodies, 1 adult, 1 child weighing 44 pounds. Connie Fluke, who helped run the search and rescue mission, described the emotional toll of the effort. Volunteers wanted to find Abby, but no one wanted to be the one to find her. The thought of discovering a child's remains in that harsh wilderness was almost too much to bear. They found nothing. Not a trace of Jennifer, not a trace of Abby. The landscape had swallowed them completely, or they had never been there at all. Michael Blagg was not among the searchers. He wanted to be, he later claimed, but investigators told him it would be inappropriate given that he was still considered a person of interest. Michael said he was barred from searching for his own family. Critics pointed out that he never organized his own search parties, never publicly appealed with photos of Abby specifically, never behaved the way desperate parents typically behave when their children are missing. By May 2002, the case had gone cold. No bodies, no arrests, just a house with blood on the bedroom floor, and 2 people who had vanished. Michael moved out of the family home. Unable to continue working in Grand Junction under the weight of suspicion and negative media attention, he was fired from his job at Ametek-Dixon. On May 13, 2002, Michael left Colorado and moved to Georgia to live with his mother. 2 days after he left, on May 15, 2002, investigators made a decision that would change everything. They began searching the Mesa County landfill. The search of the landfill was based on a specific theory. Investigators believed that if Jennifer's body had been disposed of, the most logical place was in the industrial dumpster at Ametek-Dixon, where Michael worked. The company's trash was collected regularly and transported to the Mesa County landfill. If the body had been thrown into that dumpster on November 13th, it would have been buried under months of garbage by the time searchers arrived. The search took place during one of the hottest summers in recent Mesa County history. Temperatures exceeded 100 degrees. The smell was overwhelming. Crews in hazmat suits combed through thousands of tons of trash, piece by piece, looking for human remains. For 16 days, they found nothing. Then, on June 4, 2002, the 17th day of the search, a worker operating a backhoe lifted a load of garbage. A television news photographer named Chris Schumann was filming the operation. He wiped dust from his camera lens and looked through the viewfinder. What he thought was a branch dangling from the backhoe's shovel wasn't a branch at all. It was a human leg. The remains were wrapped in a red and black plastic tent. The tent was tied with a single overhand knot. Inside, surrounded by decomposing garbage, was what was left of Jennifer Blagg. The body was so badly decomposed that it was nearly unrecognizable. She had been there for 7 months. Jennifer Blagg weighed 130 pounds when she was alive. When her body was found, it weighed only 60 pounds. Dr. Dean Havlick, the Mesa County coroner, was called to the scene. He confirmed the remains were human and had them transported to the hospital for autopsy and identification. Dental records confirmed what everyone already knew. This was Jennifer Blagg. The autopsy revealed critical information. Jennifer had been shot once in the left eye at close range. The wound showed powder tattooing, indicating the gun had been pressed nearly against her skin when fired. Her dental retainer was still in her mouth when she died, meaning she had been killed while sleeping. She only wore the retainer at night. The tent her body was wrapped in was similar to one that friends remembered seeing in the Blagg family's garage when they lived in South Carolina. And perhaps most damningly, the location where Jennifer's body was found in the landfill corresponded to a specific area of trash. That trash had been collected from Ametek-Dixon during a specific window of time, around November 13, 2001. The search for Abby continued in the landfill for almost 7 more weeks. Crews sifted through 7,000 tons of trash. They found nothing. No trace of the 6-year-old girl, no clothing, no remains, no evidence that she had ever been in that landfill. Michael Blagg was arrested on June 6, 2002, just hours after Jennifer's body was officially identified. He was in Georgia at the time, living with his mother. Police had been following him since he left Colorado in May, tracking his movements. When they made the arrest, Michael appeared shocked. He maintained his innocence. He said he didn't know how Jennifer ended up in the landfill. He said he loved his family and would never hurt them. He was charged with first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and multiple counts of theft. The theft charges related to items taken from the family home that had been insured, including jewelry. Prosecutors argued that Michael had staged the burglary scene, killed his wife, and stolen items to support the intruder narrative. No charges were filed in connection with Abby's disappearance. Without a body, without evidence of what happened to her, prosecutors couldn't prove murder. Michael Blagg's first trial began in March 2004 in Mesa County. The prosecution's case was entirely circumstantial, but it was extensive. They presented evidence of Michael's secret life, the pornography, the escort services, the lies. They called Luella Cross to testify about Jennifer's visit to domestic violence services. They showed the jury photos of the crime scene, demonstrating how it had been staged. They walked through the timeline of November 13th, showing that Michael had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill his wife. The motive, prosecutors argued, was control. Michael was a man who needed to control his environment, his wife, his family. When Jennifer began taking steps toward divorce, when she threatened to destroy the perfect image he had cultivated, he eliminated the threat. He killed her while she slept, wrapped her body in the tent from the garage, loaded her into the family minivan, drove to his workplace and disposed of her in the dumpster. Then he came home, staged the scene, and called 911. The prosecution played recordings of Michael's voicemail messages from November 13th, his cheerful tone early in the day. "Hello, my beautiful bride. Hope you're having fun. You're out and about doing all kinds of cool and nifty things." They argued that these messages were part of the performance. He was creating a record of trying to reach his wife, establishing an alibi. They also showed the jury evidence of unusual behavior at Michael's workplace on the morning of November 13th. Co-worker Clara Luce testified that she had a 30 to 40-minute conversation with Michael early that morning. "He looked different," she said. "Pale. Not his usual self." Most significantly, Michael loaded up a dumpster at his workplace that morning, a task that was out of the ordinary for him. He refused offers of help with the task, insisting on doing it alone.